Hello, folks. I see people starting to join. Hello, hello. And welcome to our third week of Financial Literacy Month. We are continuing the conversations around the importance of financial literacy with our third Instagram Live. I'm Amanda Nasruddin, and I'm the Chapter Relations Coordinator here at Advocis. And in case you missed it, last week we had guest Mike Riley speaking on all about buying basics. So if you didn't catch it, I recommend you folks going to our website, www.financialadviceforall.com, to see our previous Instagram Lives, our latest articles, and podcasts, including our very first junior financial advisor video. It's a completely fictitious designation, but it's a cute way to kind of capture the thoughts of children ages 5 to 16 and what their thoughts around financial advice and literacy is. And it's super great. I recommend you checking it out. We've got the link in our bio here. I'm waiting for our latest guest speaker here. I see her. Kristen, we're going to go live. Just waiting for Kristen to join us here. Hi! You hear me? Everything's good?
Yeah, what about me? You're good on my end too?
We're golden. We're good. We're good.
Awesome.
So, folks, we're joined here with Kristen Fazio, who's actually a recent PFA designation holder. Congratulations. I'm very excited today to speak to you all about planning basics. How are you doing?
Good. It snowed, so I've got all the warm fuzzies this morning, so I'm okay with it. I love it.
I'm happy, but I'm not, but it's okay. Snow is always good, I guess. I don't know. But I'm super pumped here. We were just talking, like I was telling the audience here, that we've been talking very strongly about, financial literacy and why it's important. Our overarching theme has been going back to basics. And this week, we thought you would be the best fit to talk about planning basics, because I know that's what you love to talk about. So.
A topic near and dear to my heart. I'm so passionate about literacy in general, but getting to the planning basics, for me, that's where you start. So I'm so excited.
Very true. No, and I know we've only got, 30 minutes on the clock here. There's so much we can talk about planning basics, but we've got some questions for you, and I think that we'll be able to capture quite a bit around planning basics, and I know you're very knowledgeable in this area. So we'll dive into it if you're ready.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So one of the first questions that we have really comes down to the bare bones of financial planning, and that's, what are the smart tips and tricks to starting a financial plan? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. And so you kind of already knocked it on the head in how you asked the question. For me, when you're thinking about financial planning, or you're thinking about sort of starting that journey on optimizing your finances and getting things in line, it all starts with goal setting and making sure that you have good goals to get you where you want to go. Because a lot of people are like, well, I'll start with my budget, or I'll start with saving, or I'll start with, but it's very difficult to figure out where you're going to do or put that money or how you're going to get it if you don't have a goal in mind. And so I always tell my clients, especially in anybody starting this process, is to come up with goals. Now, when I say come up with a goal, it's not like, oh, I want to retire one day. Like, that's a very generic goal. You want to put together what I call, and what you sort of said, Amanda, is a SMART goal. And when you break down the term SMART, it means specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. And if you have all of those aspects within your goal, it's going to be a no-brainer that you're going to be able to hit those goals. And to me, I'm a very goal-oriented person. I'm competitive. It makes you more motivated to really conquer your finances. So, for example, if it's that I want to retire, or do we say something like, I want to retire at the age of 65. I'm going to do so by putting aside X amount of dollars per month now. Is that attainable? Yes, because I've already put it into my budget, and I know based on my income I can do so. And is it time sensitive? Well, yes, I want to retire by age 65. So it gives you a lot more to sort of go off of when you are planning. And for me, I find too, it makes your sort of spending habits and everything about your life in this journey a lot smoother, because when you go to say, okay, should I buy, this product or that? Do I really need it? Or does that money go towards saving for my retirement that I have a specific goal for? So to me, first off the bat, the basics that you can do is set yourself proper attainable goals that kind of meet that outline. And write it on a piece of paper, break it down, do your SMART and stick with it. And it will make a huge difference and it'll make you more motivated in the process.
I like that. I really love the acronym. Make sure it's specific, it's measurable, real, attainable. I can't spell anymore. Attainable, realistic, and timely. Definitely a really good way to kind of set it up. I do have a sub question to this, and it's how many goals are too much? Like, do you have a recommendation, like set 3 SMART goals or 5 SMART goals, or there's no limit?
That's a great question. I honestly think it's specific to every client and every person. If you're new in your journey and you're a bit concerned or uncomfortable with, how this process will work, set 1 or 2 goals that are very realistic and very perhaps short term. If you're more experienced with it and you feel comfortable and confident that you can balance a few goals, there's no harm in having extra, longer term goals. I find what works best usually with my clients is having 1 or 2 short-term goals that you're working towards on a daily basis. For example, I want to buy my first home in the next 5 years. So you're working on gathering enough for a down payment. But then there's goals, like I mentioned, retirement. So that's way in the future for a lot of millennials, and it seems like forever away, but starting that planning process now makes that transition a lot smoother. So kind of having a few on the go is never a bad thing, especially when they're kind of at different time points. If you heavy load, I want to accomplish the next 10 things in, the next 5 years, well, that's a lot to handle. So that is where it comes back to, is it realistic? Like in those goals, can I realistically, go on a trip, buy a boat, and get a cottage all within the next 2 years? Perhaps not. Perhaps for some, yes, but that's where we kind of want to. And when you work through that process, you'll sort of quickly see, okay, you know what, this one's a bit too much for me to bite off right now with the rest of them. But yes, having 1 or 2, like short-term and long-term, I think is definitely fair.
Perfect. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to put too much on your plate. When you have too many goals, I think goal setting is great, but when you don't know where to look and where to focus, so that's a big part of it too, right? So that's 100%.
And the value.
Yeah. Coming back down to the idea of this 2020, like this whole year has been a very unpredictable, very interesting time to be a financial advisor for sure. When you're setting your financial plans, you'd think many people would have some space for an emergency fund. But a lot of people in reality, they don't really account for that because they don't think something similar to what's happened in 2020 would occur. I want to kind of dive into it and get your thoughts on why is it so important to include an emergency fund other than what we've seen this year? And how would you go about including that when you're in your plans?
That's a really great question. And I think from a positive perspective, 2020 has taught us a lot in a financial perspective. I have worked with more clients than ever this year, coming from a place of, I don't want to feel like this again, and I want to have a plan in place that will help me feel like I know where I'm going with my finances. And so I think it has made this generation coming, through this pandemic a lot wiser and a lot more financially literate because of what they've experienced. So I do think that there will be value coming out of all of this. I know it has not been fun or easy for anybody. I totally appreciate that. But I do think a lot of people have taken this as an initiative to say, I'm ready to take control of my finances. An emergency fund is so important. And what I think most people forget is that what an emergency fund actually is. What an emergency fund needs to be is something that's liquid, meaning that it's not cash that's invested in a TFSA or your RRSP or anywhere that will be difficult to draw from. And people mix that up a lot of times because they'll say, yeah, I've got 20 grand sitting in my TFSA saving account, but that should be set aside for your goals that you've set. So it's not something you want to dip into. Having at least 3 months of accessible cash to support your lifestyle is so important. Not only from the idea of, you have a pandemic like this where somebody has, lost their job or has reduced income from hours, but what if you got sick and you couldn't work? Forget pandemic aside, right? What if something happened to a loved one and you want to take time off work? All of this extra emergency fund is there to support you and maintain your lifestyle in your worst case scenario. So when I sit with my clients, I'll always say, okay, what are the bare minimums that you would feel comfortable having to pay or needing to pay in the event that you had zero cash flow coming into your household? So we go over things like, okay, we need to pay food, we need to pay rent, we need to pay for our car. And when you tally all of that up, multiplying that by at least 3 and having that nest egg sitting there waiting in case of that emergency.
I think it's lagging 2 seconds here. Kristen, I think I don't know if you can hear me. Just let me know. Are you back? I think I see you. 2 seconds. Gotta love technology. Ah.
If it's one thing we've learned.
Okay, perfect. I hear you. I see you. Okay. Good.
Awesome.
My apologies. Tech is it's going to be the death of me,
So,
really. I was going to say, I think the last thing we were hearing is just you have 3 months of liquid kind of cash, keeping 3 months worth of your expenses. And I really like the fact that let's sit here and think about all the expenses that you have on a monthly basis before it happens, how much you think you need to survive and what you're comfortable with having there. So that's
like my goal is always to say, you know what, I hope you never have to use it. I hope this is never something that you have to dip into, but having the ease of mind if something like the pandemic comes again, or if something happens to your health or a family member, or for whatever reason you just need access to that cash, something as simple as like your roof caves, like you never know what will happen. Having the cash there, at least for me, perhaps because I'm in like a financial planning industry, it just eases me to know that it's there. And I think once a lot of my clients understand the value of it, see how they can use it, I too believe that they find there's a lot of value in having it.
Yeah, and going back to the point that you made, the silver lining for 2020 is really that people are having conversations around their financial literacy, around having these kinds of contingency plans and emergency funds. So that's actually a really good point that you made. And I assume that you've had more of these conversations this year than ever before. So
Quite interesting too. I've seen a lot of people come to me and say, you know what, I actually have more cash flow right now than I ever have because they're not going out or traveling or this and that. And they're like, I never realized how much I spent before I had to stop everything. And they're like, now that I understand the value of how much money I could actually be saving, what should I do with it? And so that's where a lot of it stemmed to, is having this different lifestyle of having to kind of take that step back and maybe not do as much or buy as much or have no need for it, gave light to, I actually have cash flow that I could be putting towards my retirement or this future goal that I have that's really important to me that requires funding. So it's been interesting, scary, but interesting.
Very eye-opening, I would assume. So your point here really dovetails very nicely into my next question, and that's investments. And we see that a lot of people have, should I invest? Should I not? A lot of people are hesitant because there's a lot of big questions to ask when you're putting in money into whether it's a risky investment or a very, long-term investment. Now, going back and tying it to goal setting. So how can you take your goals and align them with your investments and vice versa? How does that work?
Such a great question, because I think that not enough people realize how in line they actually are. In order for you to be the most effective with your goals, identifying long-term versus short-term is one of your first aspects when it comes to investing. Because to be honest, if you want to get anywhere with your money, keeping it under your bed is really not going to do much, under your mattress, right? You want to be investing it, and although the markets are all over the place, using the power of time, right? People forget the value of saying, if I put if you put $1 away today in your 20s, it's actually worth $7 in your retirement. And people forget that that is such a big gap when you are trying to save for goals. And so the idea of taking your money, putting it into an investment vehicle, one, it's out of your mind, so you can't spend it. And so it actually will be used and saved towards your goals, but aligning them with what type of goal. So it's very specific to who you are and what your goals are. But in a generic term, if you're saving for some short term, looking for, in the next 5 to 10 years, you want to buy a house, then putting it in a TFSA might make sense, right? Because you could pull the money out of your TFSA whenever you want to, but that investment vehicle is a bit more liquid. If you're saying, I want to save specific amount, well, then using an investment program through your RRSP makes sense, because that's for your retirement planning. So there's definitely strategies that you would put in place to align with your goals when it comes to investing. I personally believe that's when, people like myself come into play, where we sit down with you, we analyze all of your goals, we help you understand which type of investment. And there will be situations where, if your goals are too short term, that maybe we aren't investing, like maybe we are holding it in cash for you to have. And I think you kind of knocked it on the head. Some people don't know what to do or how to do it. It's a big decision to make on your own. Like for somebody who's not specialized in it, I can't imagine, me going to decide, okay, well, I think I've got a cavity. Well, other than the fact that it hurts, I don't really know much else about what's going on in my mouth. And I go to a dentist for it. illness. I don't just diagnose myself with cancer. I go to a doctor. So that's the same idea, is working with professionals gives you a bit of ease in saying, okay, I now, one, understand why I'm investing, and two, I understand where I'm investing and how it's being invested. So making that decision on your own can be daunting. And I think having support of people who can walk you through it, understand your goals, and really kind of build you a whole picture of where this will get you is really important.
That's actually a very good way to put it, and I hear this a lot in conversations too. It's just like, you're not going to sit there and diagnose yourself. You go to someone who specializes in these kinds of things and will know what's going on to kind of help you out there. And that applies to, financial literacy, financial advice. And you're going to a financial advisor who's done the work, who understands where to kind of help you and how to tackle your goals from there. And that actually also, that perfect into my next question too, again, it's perfect. And that's the importance of working with a financial advisor. I mean, a lot of people sit here and say, well, like, I know what I want. No one knows what, I want better than myself, and I could totally tackle it. But you sit there and it's just like, when you're really doing it, there's a lot of things people tend to miss out on that your financial advisor would know. What's your advice for those kinds of people about working with a financial advisor specifically?
I think it's so important to have a good relationship and work with an advisor. And one of the main reasons is you are not going to be as unbiased about your financial goals, about your budgeting, about your future, as somebody who literally has no ties to it. So for someone like myself, when I look at a client's file and I go through with them their budgets, I go through with them their goals, how we're going to get there, I look at it like a blank slate, right? You're at that point, to me, you are just numbers on a page, so that I can give you unbiased opinions as to, are you spending too much in certain categories, or is your goal truly attainable? And I don't think personally that a lot of people can do that on their own. A lot of people will look at their budget and be like, yeah, well, like, I kind of spent that 100, but maybe it was 200, but like it was somewhere in 100 to 200. You need to know exactly how much you spent, right? And that's where, when you see me put it on paper, it almost holds you a bit more attainable as well. Because I've had clients actually reach out to me and be like, Kristen, I can't even buy a book at Indigo anymore because I look at the price of it and think of you. And like, there is an element of having an accountability, right? You want someone to look at your finances and be your motivator and be your like hoorah girl, but also be the person to call you out and help you get to those goals. It is difficult. Money is such a hard game because everything is so accessible. Amazon is at your door in a day. It's a click away. Generations ago, everyone was cash. And if you ran out of cash at the end of the week, you're out of cash. But with us, there's this unending supply of credit and, getting more credit cards and getting a loan and, leveraging your house. And there's just so many ways to get cash that I find people need to have somebody to be accountable to. And I think from the way I approach it when I work with clients, nothing I do is anything more than education. I educate people, like this whole reason for this financial literacy. I educate people as to why they want to make these decisions and where this will get them in the future. I put projections together to show them, if you save this much and it's invested at this rate, this is how much you're going to get in retirement. And I think seeing those numbers and being like, wow, I could be a millionaire, like I could retire with $1 million, is something that you can't give to yourself. Like I don't think the average person would be able to, or have the time to set aside to really go and be like, how much money would I have if I saved at this rate, blah, blah. That's what we do. So we educate you and explain and walk you through and literally hold your hand from the day you start these plans until the day you retire, and help you get to those goals and make adjustments and have that second set of eyes that you're not balancing family life and work and your job and now your entire financial future, right? It's a lot for someone to handle. So I think viewing it more as like an education piece, as a partnership, I envy the people who can take it on themselves, but I would truly say that there is value in having somebody else with you through the process.
No, definitely. And it's that word that you used there, was unbiased, is really like, I nodded when you were saying like, oh, I didn't really spend $200. I spent this much. And I mean, I am going to be biased when I'm looking at my own expenses, right? So for someone who's like kind of looking at it from a third eye, almost kind of just sitting here and be like, oh, okay, like, no, you need to cut down here. By cutting down here, you'll actually save this much, and you can put that towards an investment or your TFSA or whatever it is, right? That's huge. And never has there been a time where shopping and purchasing things has been so easy. Like, you almost do it mindlessly. Like, everything, I can speak for myself, where my credit card is on, like, my several accounts, whether it's Amazon or Sephora or whatever it is. Just by a click of a button, and 2 days later I have the box at my door. It's dangerous. And I'm just going to use that word there. But And that's kind of, looking at the millennial side of things. Like, what is your advice for millennials when it comes to planning and living in this new virtual reality where things are just so easy, click and pay, click and pay, you don't really sense the money coming in?
I work a lot with millennials. I would say
Mhm.
90% of my, not all my clients, but 90% of them are millennials. And I love it because I think we have such an opportunity as millennials. We have seen so many people become self-employed. We have such a driven society of people who want to excel in their careers and make money and really, really see their futures grow. We also live in, like you said, a really weird time where everything is virtual and we can get whatever we want when we want. But you're at such a ripe point in your career where it's hopefully only going up income wise. And you can make such good decisions and such great planning if you start now. Not to say that you can't start later in life. That's no time is a bad time to start. But the earlier, like I said at the beginning, is the time value. Having that time behind your goals is so, so, so important. And having millennials just take that extra bit of time to sit down and sort of figure out what's the best plan of action to put in place to get me where I want to be. And I think it can be pretty hard because even for myself, and I mean, you probably agree, sometimes I find it hard, and I do this for a living. I find it hard to be like, what do I want in retirement? Like, do I want to, do I, like, it's 35 years away. Like, I have no idea what I want to be doing. But starting that process and starting to think about it when you have time is so much more valuable than being 55 and being like, well, I wish in 10 years I could retire and have this income, but I haven't saved. So taking the initiative, as much as we want to like live life and spend our money and like, do what you want to do when you're young, there's such a value in building in just a little bit of planning for that future will put you in a great spot for later. And one thing I should mention too, I kind of said, having that unbiased opinion, that doesn't mean judgment. And I've had a lot of millennials struggle with this, saying that they are either upset or uncomfortable with the fact that they carry debt from school or they carry debt from bad decisions. That that doesn't mean that we are judging you. We're your partners, and I always view it, like I said, educationally and positively. It's not, oh, you shouldn't be spending that. For me, it's, if you didn't spend that, you would have this, and it's your choice. At the end of the day, it's always going to be your choice to say, you know what, I would actually rather just continue living my life this way. If that's what you want to do, then I mean, great, we've educated you as best we can. But I think it's empowering to be like, wait a minute, if I didn't spend that $200 and I put it towards my debt or I put it towards my goal, I'd be, here in 5 years. So it's not ever, it should never be. And a good advisor will never judge you. They will back you and they will help you see the difference and sort of motivate you to get to that next phase of your, planning.
No, that's definitely a very good clarification to make, just because it is, people sit there and say like, oh, my advisor's going to be like, finances is not an easy conversation to have. It's pretty personal. It's pretty, you don't want to talk about it with just anybody. So having somebody that you trust to sit there and know that they're not going to judge you, they're going to actually advise you. Basically, that's what they're doing. They're just letting you know whether or not to spend that dollar there or not. I love the fact that, or you said earlier, that now some people are going to Indigo and they can't think of purchasing a book without remembering the things you told them. It's not like you're telling them not to buy the book. It's just you can make smarter decisions, like when you're thinking,
Habits. It's thing. And I think the major picture with that is when you know where it could go. When you don't have a plan, like I said at the beginning, it doesn't matter what you spend, because where would it go otherwise? It would just sit in your account. But when you have a goal that you're like, I'm dedicated, like I'm driven and I want this goal so badly that I will do anything for this goal, that people will forgo buying a $6 book. And I think it's so funny and they love it. It's a good thing. But it's just having that mindset change. Instead of clicking on Amazon, it's like, wait a minute. Like, I've actually got to the point where I've clicked on Amazon and checked out and actually not looked at the price of what I just paid for something. So I'm like, well, I need it. And that's where your mindset has to change. You have to be like, do I need $200 worth of, cute storage containers for my kitchen because I'm addicted to the home edit on Netflix? Like, is that necessary? It's like, well, probably not, because I have bins in my basement, right? I can use those. So just changing the way you think is so important. And having, like I said, having an advisor, having goals, everything, like you mentioned, this is the basics. This foundation, having this foundation can completely change the way somebody views their own mental, like money mindset, views where their future can go, views what they're doing on a daily basis and how it affects it. It's pretty positive.
Yeah, no, and I love the fact that you brought up the home edit too. Just as a side note, I've been watching it, and I want a container store in Canada, and I sit here and I'm like, I really don't need the containers. They just look so great. But at the same time, it's going back to the idea in the back end here is discipline, having the discipline to know whether or not to purchase them. Do I really need it? Can I put it elsewhere? And I love the fact that you said that it really depends on your plan. Having that plan will really sit there and reinforce your decisions whether or not you should go with something or not. So I really do like that. I want to sit here and talk all day, but we've got about 5 more minutes left. So I wanted to open it to our guests here to ask any questions. So folks, if you have any questions for Kristen at all, put them in the chat box or put them in the little Q&A feature you'll see at the bottom of your live page, and we'll definitely tackle them. But otherwise, I do think that just having a plan will really sit there. I think that's really step one when you're sitting here talking about your finances. It's really the bones and the foundation of everything moving forward. So,
and it's, you have something in writing and on paper, not only does it hold you accountable to like, it's literally on paper, but it gives you a reference point too, right? Like you set goals today. Are you going to remember them in 2 years, or are you going to refer back to your plan or refer back to your advisor who's like, hey, remember, we're working towards this goal. It's like, oh yeah. Or if we need to make changes, it's like, have things changed? The original plan was as a single woman and now you're married with kids. Like, do we need to make adjustments? Well, yes, we need to make big adjustments. So having an actual physical plan in place, it's not just kind of all up in the air, makes a huge difference.
That's a good point too, because your plans are not always set in stone. Life happens, things change, and those plans do need to be, I guess, malleable in a way that you can change them, but also be ready for them too. So you have to sit here and think about, I really like the idea that you sit with your clients and let's think about what could happen before it happens, or if even it does happen. If it doesn't, that's great. If it does, we've got a plan. And I think that that's why planning is really such an important foundational part of, you know, knowing your finances and being able to be financially literate here. So I think we're frozen. Kristen, can you hear me at all? I don't know. Hello?
Oh, I can hear you.
Can I have a thumbs up at all? Or? Okay, good. Alrighty. Folks, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I know that this was pretty quick, but we had a lot to cover, and there's always, you know, questions to ask about financial planning. But if you do have any questions for us, let us know within the next 2 minutes. If not, Kristen has her very own Instagram page, super engaging. I love it. I'm always like tuning in. It's fantastic. And I know that you have a great way to kind of make financial literacy engaging and interesting for millennials who tend to not want to like hear so much about their finances. They live on that YOLO, you only live once kind of.
And on extremely nerdy. Like by trade, I'm a scientist, so I'm like extremely analytical. I'm like super into not so much blood and guts anymore, but all like the intimate parts of financial planning. It can be so fun. Like, I know it sounds so silly, but finances can be really fun. And most of the time I grab a coffee, we get on a Zoom call, and we chat about what you're doing with your money. And it's so easy to do. So don't let it scare you. Anyone's like, oh, I still don't know. Like Amani said, follow Advocis, follow me. You will get so much information and so much fun to kind of see exactly how easy it can be and how motivating it can be for you.
Definitely. And this is why it's so important for Financial Literacy Month and for us to recognize it. Actually, I think I see a question here. So it's coming from Nick, and he says, the thoughts on millennials jumping on flight and vacation deals for flights and vacations that may not happen. Yet to save or
That's a good question. I think
vacation deals now, or should you, or
yeah, that is a really interesting question. Again, it's very personal. It depends on what your goals are. If your goals are to travel as much as you can in the next 5 years, then perhaps on a bigger scale of things, I don't think it's as important as it is to save. We have, like I kind of said at the beginning of this presentation, we have an amazing opportunity ahead of us with so many people who perhaps are still, you know, have good income flow, but have nothing to do. Take that and put it into some sort of savings plan. And this is where your goals come into play. Like for somebody who's booking these flights, perhaps they don't have a goal. Perhaps they haven't sat down and thought about what retirement looks like or thought about what their 5-year plan is. And if they have a real goal, they probably wouldn't be buying them. They probably would be sitting back going, oh, okay, well, I would rather save it and invest it and see the growth that I will experience instead of sort of forking it into something that I don't even know will happen. And then you run the risk that these companies will not give you back your money, just credit. You know, if you have to reschedule your trips for whatever they're planned. But I definitely think it's a great opportunity to save to set those goals and to just fork as much money as you can into them right now, because there's really not much else you can spend it on.
No, I think that's a good point. And I think if we have a big takeaway here, it's really having those plans and those goals really set the picture for whether it's the short term time or the long term, and making sure that those goals are indeed specific. I really like that. SMART, measurable, everything. Like that acronym is a really way to go. Make sure your goals are SMART. Then I can't thank you enough for jumping on a call with, on a live, not a call, but really with us here today. We definitely took a lot from you, and we're going to make sure that this will be posted on our website, www.financialadviceforall.com. And folks, we'll see you next week for another great session. Kristen, you have a great rest of the day, and we'll chat for sure. You take care.
Thank you so much for having me. Great.
Cheers. Take care.
Bye, man.